Why women struggle to ignore Sigma males? Watch the reasons.
Why do some men barely speak, barely move, barely try, yet somehow end up taking over a woman's entire mental universe without even meaning to? It's almost unsettling when you think about it. Not magic, not manipulation, just something in their presence that bends the energy in a room. And if you're a Sigma, you already know exactly what I'm talking about, even if you've never put it into words. Oscar Wilde said, "Everything in the world is about sex, except sex. Sex is about power. And Sigmas, you've mastered the art of silent power." Now picture this. A man walks in quietly, no theatrics, no swagger, no need for the spotlight. He's focused, composed, observing everything without forcing anything. At first, he blends into the background, but the longer he stays, the more the atmosphere changes. Women start stealing glances. Friends lean in a little too long. The room feels just slightly pulled in his direction, like gravity just shifted by a fraction of an inch. That man is the Sigma. He doesn't broadcast his worth. He doesn't chase admiration. He doesn't perform. Yet he becomes unforgettable. This kind of presence doesn't rely on words. It relies on energy. And energy is something women feel long before they consciously notice it. That's why, in a world built on noise, distraction, and over-the-top masculinity, the Sigma male becomes the anomaly, the quiet mystery that refuses to be decoded. Today, I'm breaking down 7 unusual reasons why women struggle to ignore Sigma males. Reasons far deeper and more psychological than the generic explanations you see everywhere else. Stay with me to the very end, Sigmas, because once you understand what's really happening beneath the surface, you'll realize you've been carrying a kind of influence most men spend their entire lives trying and failing to imitate. As the great actor Gary Oldman once said, "True power is staying calm." Point 1. Independence is magnetic. While countless men exhaust themselves seeking approval or trying to prove their worth, Sigmas walk down a completely different path. Their strength doesn't come from loud declarations. It comes from the calm, unwavering confidence of a man who doesn't need external validation to feel whole. This kind of independence sends a powerful subconscious signal. A man who stands firm on his own becomes intriguing because he projects the image of someone who can build, survive, and thrive without leaning on others. This challenges the typical social narrative. Most men feel pressured to prove themselves through competition or attention. But the Sigma flips that script. He shows that real power comes from within, not from applause or recognition. And women notice this immediately. Psychologically, humans are drawn toward traits tied to resilience and leadership. A Sigma's independence sparks that instinctive awareness. Women sense, here's someone steady, someone capable, someone who won't collapse under pressure. Evolutionary psychology even backs this up. Autonomy signals strength. And a Sigma radiates autonomy without trying. What makes this even more compelling is how quietly Sigmas embody it. The Alpha wants to be seen. The Sigma simply is. That contrast creates the paradox women can't resist. The man who avoids attention somehow captures it completely. Picture a crowded room where everyone fights to be noticed, except one man. He's focused, calm, in his own lane. Who stands out more? Exactly. The Sigma becomes the unintentional mystery every woman feels drawn to. And this extends beyond relationships. In society, Sigma males redefine masculinity. They don't bow to hierarchy, but they also don't challenge it for ego. They simply operate outside it, building their own world in their own way. This balance, strength without shouting, independence without isolation, creates a rare and powerful magnetism. Women aren't drawn to it because it's flashy. They're drawn to it because it's rare. In a world where approval is currency, the Sigma's self-sufficiency becomes priceless. That's why attention finds him. That's why curiosity grows. And that's why women struggle to look away. Point 2, the mystery effect. Women can't walk away from something they can't fully decode, and that is exactly why Sigma males hold such a magnetic pull. In a time when everyone is oversharing, overspeaking, and broadcasting every detail of their lives, Sigmas move in the opposite direction. They don't parade their private lives online. They don't flood social feeds with constant updates. And they certainly don't narrate every emotion for the world to analyze. Instead, they live quietly, intentionally, and with a sense of mystery that most people can't help but gravitate toward. Human psychology has always been addicted to the unknown. When something is only partly revealed, the mind can't help but chase the missing pieces. It's the same reason cliffhangers hook us, why thrillers keep us awake, and why the Sigma's silence feels impossible to look away from. There's even science behind this pull. Psychologists call it the curiosity gap, the power of showing just enough to spark interest but not enough to satisfy it. When a man lives authentically yet keeps certain parts of himself private, he creates that gap naturally. Women catch a glimpse, but never the whole picture, and that incomplete information keeps their attention locked. This isn't manipulation, it's authenticity. Sigmas don't hide. They simply choose what to reveal, and that choice displays confidence. History has always celebrated people who mastered silence. Think of Nikola Tesla, private, reserved, yet unforgettable. Or Bruce Lee, few words, endless wisdom. Sigma males channel that same energy. They don't chase the spotlight, yet somehow the spotlight curves toward them. The irony? By not seeking validation, they often attract more of it. For women, this creates a unique tension. They want answers, yet the Sigma refuses to hand them over easily. That challenge becomes irresistible. In a world overflowing with predictability, Sigmas bring a flavor of unpredictability that feels refreshing and exciting. They're like an unread book with a title that sparks curiosity. You want to open it, even though you know it won't reveal all its secrets at once. At the core of it all, the Sigma's magnetism isn't about hiding, it's about intention. He doesn't spread himself thin. He shares parts of himself only in meaningful moments, and that rarity makes every interaction feel significant. Women crave authenticity, and the Sigma embodies it without trying. Point 3. The aura of restraint. While many men rush to prove themselves, oversharing their achievements or emotions, Sigmas move in the opposite direction. They choose to hold back. They don't spill their entire past, their plans, or their inner world to gain approval. Instead, they stay silent when silence says more than words ever could. And that restraint radiates a rare self-discipline. In an age where oversharing is the norm, where people broadcast every meal, every insecurity, every fleeting thought, the Sigma becomes unforgettable simply because he doesn't. His quietness makes him a paradox. Difficult to read, yet impossible to ignore. His mystery doesn't just intrigue people. It commands respect. Why? Because restraint has always been a form of strength. Whether it's emotional control, disciplined thinking, or measured behavior, real strength is unmistakable. Psychologists often mention that in a society wired for instant gratification, the ability to delay, to pause, to hold back is a superpower. And Sigmas carry that naturally. They're not chasing applause or validation. Their worth comes from within, not from how many eyes are on them. That inner composure is magnetic. Women, especially, notice this pattern instantly because it breaks the predictable behavior they see from most men who try too hard. While others reveal every trick within minutes, a Sigma reveals himself slowly, like a novel you can't stop reading because every new chapter hints at something deeper. But this isn't manipulation. It's simply the Sigma way. They move by choice, not pressure. They invest their energy where it matters. And in a world full of people bending themselves out of shape to fit in, that quiet refusal to perform feels shockingly irresistible. History backs this up, too. Many remarkable thinkers and creators carried this same Sigma energy. Nikola Tesla with his solitude, Bruce Lee with his philosophy of mastery and self-control. Their greatness didn't come from noise, but discipline. That's the Sigma essence. power rooted in restraint. So when you see a Sigma sitting quietly in the back of a room, never mistake it for weakness. That silence is strength, focused, deliberate, unshakable. And in a world addicted to oversharing, that level of self-governance makes him unforgettable. The Sigma doesn't need to raise his voice to be heard. His silence travels further than most people's shouting. Point 4. The rebel without the show. Sigmas don't follow society's script. And the irony is, that's what makes them so captivating. Most people adjust themselves to fit into trends, social hierarchies, or whatever the culture demands. The Sigma male quietly rejects all of that. He doesn't make speeches about independence. He simply lives it. His difference isn't advertised. It radiates out of him naturally. This silent refusal to conform isn't rooted in arrogance but authenticity. And in a world where validation is practically a currency, someone who refuses to perform for approval becomes immediately unforgettable. Women often find themselves intrigued, even slightly shaken, by this kind of man. His presence triggers curiosity. What does he know that others don't? What's going on behind that controlled, unreadable calm? Throughout history, society has been fascinated by lone thinkers, philosophers like Socrates, inventors like Tesla, modern icons like Keanu Reeves. Men who didn't rebel for attention, but for truth. The Sigma embodies that same depth in the present day. He's not antisocial, he is selectively social. He chooses depth over crowd-pleasing, substance over spectacle. And this gives him an aura of mystery because humans are naturally drawn to what they can't easily read or predict. What truly separates the Sigma is his ability to thrive without external validation. Psychologists highlight that self-determination and personal autonomy are foundations of resilience, and Sigmas seem to have mastered both by instinct. While others are chasing likes, approval, or the next shiny distraction, the Sigma is quietly investing in himself, building skills, developing understanding, and expanding his inner world. That creates a rare kind of confidence that simply cannot be faked. Women are especially drawn to this because he breaks the predictable pattern. He doesn't use flashy gestures. He doesn't rely on empty charm. He doesn't reveal everything at once. His silence feels intentional, not awkward. His distance feels measured, not cold. He makes others lean in because he does not give himself away cheaply. And that subtle, natural power is captivating on a psychological level. In the end, Sigmas don't reject society just to stand out. They do it because staying true to themselves is non-negotiable. That authenticity, real, unfiltered, uncompromised, is what makes them unforgettable. They aren't trying to be mysterious. They simply are. And that quiet strength is impossible to ignore. Point 5. Depth over small talk. A Sigma man doesn't waste his breath on meaningless conversation or shallow exchanges. His words carry impact because he speaks from authenticity, not performance. In a world drowning in empty chatter, whether talk, gossip, pointless trends, he stands in a completely different category. When a Sigma speaks, he's not trying to impress. He's not manipulating anyone. He's not searching for approval. His communication is rooted in intention, thoughtfulness, and a deep understanding of his own values. And that alone makes him magnetic. Women especially recognize this instantly. They're surrounded by men who rely on rehearsed lines, forced charm, and surface-level connection. So when a Sigma male opens his mouth and actually says something real, something meaningful, something that shows he's fully present, they feel it. Authentic depth is rare, and rare things naturally attract attention. Psychological studies show humans are drawn to genuine behavior because it signals stability and emotional maturity. The Sigma projects both without even trying. His calm presence combined with his intentional speech creates a space where people feel seen, not scrutinized. He doesn't dominate the conversation with noise, but when he contributes, it's worth listening to. Maybe he shares a thoughtful observation. Maybe he asks a question that makes you pause. Maybe he tells a story that has a purpose behind it. Whatever it is, people lean in, Not because he's loud, but because he's the one voice in the room that feels too valuable to miss. Research in social dynamics even shows that individuals who speak less, yet speak with intention, are often perceived as more intelligent, more charismatic, and more capable. And that, once again, is the quiet power of the Sigma. The truth is simple. This is the Sigma advantage in its purest form. His silence never feels uncomfortable. It draws people in like gravity. And the most fascinating part? He isn't doing any of this on purpose. Sigma men aren't strategizing, rehearsing lines, or following some secret manual of attraction. Their authenticity flows naturally because it's woven into who they are. They prize quality over noise, meaning over performance, and real connection over shallow attention. That alone makes him stand out in the modern dating scene, where so much is curated, filtered, and exaggerated. Women can sense, almost instinctively, that his depth isn't manufactured. In a world overflowing with masks and social facades, his realness is intoxicating. So when a Sigma finally speaks, it's not just the words that matter. It's the echo they leave behind. His voice stays with you, not because he's trying to be unforgettable, but because genuine energy always leaves an imprint. That's why women lean closer. That's why they remember him long after the conversation ends. And that's why the Sigma sits in a category that feels entirely his own. Point 6. Calm confidence speaks louder than noise. A Sigma doesn't enter a room with fireworks or dramatic entrances. He is the storm, wrapped in stillness. His presence alone speaks louder than a crowd of 10 men fighting to prove their worth. His calmness cuts through the noise like a blade, and women feel it instantly. Not because he's trying to be noticed, but because he doesn't need to be. The Sigma's quiet confidence creates a paradox. The less he says, the more powerful he appears. The quieter he becomes, the louder his energy resonates. And this is not myth or exaggeration, it's psychology. Psychology actually confirms something most people overlook. In countless body language studies, researchers notice that the individuals who stay composed, those who don't react impulsively, don't rush to fill silence, and don't perform for attention, end up commanding far more respect than the loudest person in the room. And that's the Sigma to the core. He doesn't fidget. He doesn't scramble for validation. He doesn't try to win the room with theatrics. His presence quietly communicates one thing: I am enough exactly as I am. And strangely, that understated confidence becomes magnetic. Women instantly pick up on those subtle, almost invisible signals. His slow, deliberate movements, that relaxed cadence in his voice, the way he listens instead of competing for dominance. These behaviors read as strength on a psychological level. Where the alpha announces himself, where the beta adapts and follows, the Sigma simply is. And that effortless self-possession sets him apart. What makes his presence even more compelling is that none of it is an act. He's not pretending to be calm or controlled. His entire lifestyle has been molded by introspection, independence, and an internal sense of direction. He doesn't need validation from the crowd, and he doesn't search for a ladder to climb. He walks into a room carrying the weight of someone who's comfortable in his own skin, and that inner stability becomes a gravitational force people feel instantly, even if they can't explain why. It's the same kind of quiet confidence you see in a jazz musician who knows exactly when to play and when to let silence speak. In today's era, where everyone is constantly posting, chasing attention, and drowning in noise, this calmness feels almost rebellious. It's not ego, it's self-mastery. And self-mastery has always been one of the deepest signals of attraction. From ancient figures who led without shouting to modern innovators who changed the world without craving applause, this archetype has existed throughout every era of human history. The Sigma doesn't dominate with loudness. He dominates with presence, with silence, precision, intention. And that is exactly why, without trying, women notice him. Point 7. Authenticity in a fake world. At the core of everything, women find Sigmas irresistible because they are genuinely authentic. No filters, no disguises, no performing to win approval. Just a real, unaltered identity in a world starving for honesty. Think about the culture we live in, full of curated personalities, forced trends, and people reshaping themselves to be liked. The Sigma refuses to do any of that. He doesn't audition for acceptance. He simply exists as he is. And that quiet defiance of conformity sends shockwaves through any room he enters. He never declares, "Pay attention to me." But somehow, everyone does. And the psychology behind this is powerful. Humans are drawn to what is rare, and authenticity has become one of the rarest traits of all. A Sigma's genuineness doesn't just make him stand out. It disrupts people. It makes them question their own masks, their own compromises, their own illusions. Women especially can feel when a man isn't pretending, isn't chasing validation, isn't running a performance. That kind of raw presence creates trust, creates grounding, because a man who isn't lying to himself or the world is far less likely to lie to her. Biology plays a part too. Throughout human history, authenticity was a sign of deep inner confidence, the kind that doesn't need to be flaunted. The quiet hunters, the steady leaders, the men who didn't compete loudly but held their own with unshakable calm, those were the ones others naturally respected. Today, that same ancient energy lives quietly inside what people now call the Sigma archetype: calm, steady, unshaken. Women sense it before a single word is spoken. It's not swagger, it's not charm, it's presence, that grounded, unmistakable aura of a man who belongs to himself. But don't mistake authenticity for arrogance. A Sigma doesn't walk around acting superior or calling others fake. He simply refuses to join the performance. He lives his truth instead of advertising it. And that subtle distinction is exactly why people can't stop watching him. Here's the twist most men never understand. Authenticity isn't just attractive, it's liberating. When women see a Sigma move through the world without chasing trends, approval, or attention, something deep inside them exhales. They feel permission to be real, to soften, to drop the mask they've been wearing all day. That's the quiet magic of the Sigma archetype. He doesn't just draw attention, he shifts the entire energy in the room. So remember this truth. You don't need loud confidence, flashy tricks, or exaggerated masculinity to be noticed. Your power comes from the depth of who you are when no one's watching. Be calm, be disciplined, be rare, be undeniably authentic. Women can't ignore a Sigma because he represents something almost extinct in the modern world. A man who is untamed, unmoved, and truly himself. And in a world full of copies, rarity is the highest form of value. So walk your path with certainty. You don't chase attention. Attention naturally follows you. Stay mysterious. Stay powerful. And if this message hit home, drop a comment and subscribe to Epic Persona, the place where real transformation begins.